Welcome, Bronco Nation. Welcome back, Bronco Nation, to my review of the Boise State versus San Jose State video part 2. This is the B series of the video here. If you didn't watch the first video, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that first one. It really kind of introduces what we're going to be talking about today and discusses some other factors of the Boise State loss and kind of brings us into the conversation. However, if you're short on time, you just want to jump right into this one. I know this is probably going to be a little bit lengthy video itself. If you want to jump right into this one, that's fine. We're going to be talking about the offense, defense, special teams, how Boise State did on each of those, providing a grade. We're also going to be talking about my 3 keys to the game and how Boise State did against each of those as well. Again, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that other video. A link is in the description, or it should be even being suggested potentially. I don't know how YouTube works exactly on that. However, if you want to start here, you can join up with the rest of us, and here we go, back into it. Okay, so obviously, we're going to be talking about the offense, defense, and the special teams here. Just a note on this, if this video runs long, I'm not going to do a part C on this. I'm just going to run until this one's done. Got the 15 minutes out initially, knocking conversation, getting what we needed to say, and now we're just launch right into this stuff, and we'll just run until it's done. There's a lot to talk about. We'll just have a conversation. Let's talk about this loss. There's a lot to undig. The more that we analyze, the more that we talk about here, the more we can understand what went on in this game and how Boise State can fix it going forward. So we're going to talk about each of these. We're going to try and bring up the positives, overall positives that we can before we launch into the negatives. There is going to be a lot of negatives on most of this. It was a loss. That's just kind of how it's be, especially lost the way it was. So just to refresh anyone's memory, Boise State 24 versus San Jose State. Boise State 20 versus San Jose State 34. Let's go in with the offense. Overall grade for the offense is going to be an F. I think most people would agree with that. 1 touchdown, bunch of drives that just sputtered out cold. Was not a great day for the offense overall. Now, there were some positives. I liked Riley Smith's performance, 4 receptions for 58 yards. I really liked him coming in after Shakir got injured. I liked Shakir's performance the times that we used him. He had 6 receptions for 85 yards. He seemed to be getting yards after catch every single time. He's taking the second or third guy to actually bring him to the ground. Explosive, and I really liked his performance. And then Bachmeier, even though he had a rough day, I liked his his scrambling abilities today. Of course, he had the running touchdown, which was great, and I really liked his ability to escape some of the blitzes. It was a fierce pass rush all day, sorry. I really liked his ability to escape some of those and his rushing ability on top. If we took out the sack yards and purely counted his running yards, he'd probably have over 30 yards rushing today. Really great performance, I thought, on that element. Now let's get into the downsides, the negatives. Let's talk about that. So the biggest overall factor that completely threw Boise State off today was the offensive line could not block at all. It was like Swiss cheese out there. The defense was coming through fast and quick. Hank Bachmeier had no time to throw the ball. Now, to everyone who's criticizing Hank Bachmeier, I understand where that's coming from. It doesn't help that we have a great backup in Sears who's unable to play right now, but it doesn't help that we have a great backup in Sears right behind him who has a different skill set, more of a pro-style skill set. But here's what I'm saying. I think both of these players are incredible quarterbacks, and I think Sears would have had as much difficulty today as Bachmeier did, though maybe his scrambling ability may have helped him get out of some situations. It wouldn't have solved all of them. Hank Bachmeier had no time to throw this ball at all. He was getting hit on almost every single play or sacked. It was ridiculous. He was having to escape out of the pocket on step up or escape out of the pocket on every single play within like 2 or 3 seconds. The line was just getting completely balled over. So the offensive line, it was the biggest issue for Boise State today. Hank Bachmeier had no time. He didn't look comfortable in that pocket. He was getting hit all over. He couldn't establish rhythm with his receivers. He was clearly off all day, and that's why. And that's just kind of been his experience with Boise State, honestly. Now, part of that has been that in the past he would hold on the ball too long today. But that wasn't the case today. I was counting down some of these, and he had like 2 or 3 seconds before he was getting hit. So to get the pass off, he had like 2 seconds. And that is not enough time to let routes develop. There's maybe some outlet routes or something like that, but San Jose State was playing a fierce defense today. They were playing incredible pass rush. They weren't necessarily sending extra blitzers. It's just that Boise State's offensive linemen couldn't block them. And that really has been, so to start the season, I thought Boise State's offensive line was actually pretty strong, but they got hit by some COVID and some injuries. They kind of reshuffled things, not drastically, but I think it threw them off enough. And down the last few games, Boise State's offensive line has not been the same unit that I saw at the beginning of the year. Even against BYU, honestly, I thought that Boise State's offensive line played pretty good most of that game, especially considering they had a freshman quarterback in there with Keenan Finnegan. But I thought that Boise State's offensive line played pretty good, and he should have stayed within the blocks for most of that game, more than running outside like he did. But like I said, I think the offensive line played pretty good. But down the last few games, Boise State's offensive line has not been that same unit that was performing as a strength and has been a major weakness for them, and it definitely showed up today. And so that led into Hank Bachmeier's performance. 20 completions, 40 attempts, 50%. He attempted 40 passes, only completed 20 of them. And in 20 completions, he only had 221 yards passing, no touchdowns, and he did have the one rush and no interceptions. He had one almost picked, but it wasn't actually picked. So, but that just came from that pass rush. He had no time to get the ball off. He had an intentional grounding called on him. He had some floated passes that were almost picked. He was overthrowing receivers. He was throwing too high. Riley Smith in the back of the end zone ended up being able to run that one in for a touchdown the play after that. But again, he was not on rhythm. He was not able to establish himself, and that comes from the offensive line. Now, some of that's on Hank Bachmeier too, of course, as well. But I don't care who's out there for quarterback for Boise State today. I think they have a similar performance based on how the offensive line played today. So going on to the second thing with the offense, the issue that led to this F overall ranking. Boise State, again, they were off rhythm all day. They weren't ready to go. The ball was getting snapped early. There was miscommunications. Of course, we had the fumble snap going over Hank Bachmeier's head that ended up having to go back and fall on that. Or did Van Buren pick that up? It resulted in a lot. No, he picked it up. Hank Bachmeier picked the ball up, and then he threw it out, and I think that was the one that was intentional grounding. Anyhow, regardless of how that ended, the snap was too early. Hank Bachmeier hadn't even called for it. It came back. He was throwing. Receivers weren't ready on the screens. Hank Bachmeier off rhythm. He was throwing the ball too fast. Receivers weren't ready on the screens. There were dropped passes all over the place. We had one drive where we had receivers drop passes 3 times in a row. It was ridiculous. 3 and out because receivers can't hold on the ball. So we had, again, on that last drive where Boise State's got a chance to go down and get within a touchdown. That's kind of their last chance. C.T. Thomas just has a ball, hit him right in the hands and drops it. And this is a receiver who's usually very reliable, just drops it. Flat out drops it. No excuses there. And then the final one was that the play calling was weird. It was really, it seemed like the coaches were coming in with something in their head that they wanted to execute versus looking at the situation and adapting as required. I mean, at one point, Boise State's sitting at 3rd and 7, and they tried to run the ball with Shakir. I know they're trying to get the ball into their playmakers' hands, but running from behind the line of scrimmage on a straight-up run, I mean, it wasn't a sweep. Shakir lined up in the running back spot, and they handed the ball to him. That is not the way, and that's 3rd and 7. You know, get Shakir the ball out in space where he's able to make a cut and a move and then go. Get him a screen pass. Get him a hook like we saw a couple of times. I mean, Boise State really did not do a good job of getting the ball into Shakir's hands, into their playmakers' hands like they should have done. I know a part of that was the way that the routes were developing and the offensive line not blocking. But then you got to adapt the play calls to get Shakir the ball on a quicker out option, a screen or a rub or something to get him open and get him down the field, because he's really been that spark on offense for Boise State. Another issue with the play calling was that, and I don't know if so much this is into the play calling versus the execution, but Van Buren just had a really terrible day today. 11 carries with 26 yards, 0 touchdowns. He didn't show really any good power except for on a couple of runs. He really didn't show any speed or ability to break away. He's been very inconsistent. He's shown sparks. He's shown flashes of being really a capable running back. I thought last week's game against Wyoming, he played really decently well. I think he should have gotten the ball more than he did. And against Hawaii, I thought he was incredible. But today, we saw the Van Buren that we saw prior to the Hawaii game, who was just kind of running right into the line, not able to break away, not showing any really creativity or ball-carrying vision, just pretty much running right where the play's called to go, straight into the line. So part of that then leads us back to the play calling here. So again, just really weird on the play calling. They've got a fierce pass rush coming at them. They're trying to soften up the pass rush, and they call a receiver end around pitch back. So the receiver comes, so they got the ball, and they pitched the ball to the receiver coming back behind, and he got swarmed under. C.T. Thomas got swarmed under. Of course he did. They got a fierce pass rush. They're not able to break it. Pitching the ball behind. I mean, it wasn't even pitched to the outside. They pitched the ball right behind him, and he tried to run to the left over here, right into the pass rush. That's not how you beat a pass rush. If you've got defenders coming up field, you try to go over them. You try to go over them with a screen game. You try to break in the quick out, which Boise State did effectively. They should have gone back into that more. They try to break in the quick route, the short slant, and then when the safeties start to cut in on that middle passing game, that's when you beat them over the top. The Boise State play calling today, I'm not quite sure what the word is. The best I can describe is that it was weird. It just didn't seem to be fitting into the situation that the coaches were seeing and adjusting to what was being called by the defense and adjusting as required. And even again, on the final drive, okay, it's a minute 6. You got no timeouts, and the other team's up by 2 touchdowns. You still have a chance. You technically still have a chance. You can get that ball down and score with, say, 20 seconds left on the clock. You can try an onside kick and go for a Hail Mary. You still have a shot. You've got 40 seconds to work with. You've got all the perimeter of the field because the team is playing back deep. You've got maybe 3-4 plays that you can do to soften it up and then trying to do a Hail Mary, onside kick and Hail Mary, but it's like the team had just given up. I mean, I know a lot of us had. I hadn't turned the game off. I never do that, but I pretty much thought the game was over. And then Boise State stops them on 4th down because for some reason San Jose State decided to go for it instead of kicking a field goal and making it a 3-score game. San Jose State decides to go for it. They stop them. They have a chance, and the play calling again. It was short screens out to Van Buren in the flat, getting tackled inbounds. I mean, it ended all chances of that. I mean, as soon as you get tackled inbounds, there's no chance. There's a path before. We've had this discussion. There's a path before, and then there's no chance. The play calling, and then they'd start running drive. They'd start trying to establish run game. They get 3 or 4 yards. That was great. And then they just go pass. It wasn't working. The wide receivers weren't open. They were dropping balls and it wasn't like they were being creative in their passes. They were looking out for a deep route or for like one receiver. That wasn't an option route. They were running Hank Bachmeier outside the pocket to one side of the field where he can throw to one guy, and that's it. They're not using his creativity and his ability to read defenses. They're just running it out. You got one guy to throw to. You force it to him. If he's not open, you throw it away, and that's what we were looking at. We weren't seeing creative screens. We weren't seeing creative rub calls. We weren't seeing creativity, except for when it was bad creativity, running a Khalil Shakir 3rd and 7, handing the ball off, where of course he gets tackled in the backfield. So the creativity was lacking when it was needed, and then it was being used when it shouldn't have been. Very frustrating game for all of us to watch, I'm sure. So I think I've beat the offense, their issues here to death. We're going to move on to the defense. It's another discussion. So defense. So not as bad as the offense. D+ for the defense. There were more sparks. There were more good things done by the defense. And we're going to reverse flow on this one. We're going to talk the negatives and then go to the positives on this. So negatives overall, no pass rush almost the whole game. I think the first time that they pressured Starkley there was, or Starkle, I'm just going to say Starkley because that's how I was pronouncing it before. I'm pretty sure that's wrong, but we're just going to push with it, right? I think it is Starkle actually. Stark. Yeah, we'll go with Starkle, sorry. So Starkle, the first time that they put pressure on him was the 11-16 mark in the second quarter. 11-16 was the first time that I saw them actually put effective pressure on Nick Starkle. A whole quarter went by where he had all the time he wanted today to throw, and then after that, he pretty much had all the time the day he wanted to throw as well. Boise State only sacked Nick Starkle 2 times. Whole game, 2 times. That's it. There was no pass rush. He had all day to look for options. The corners weren't able to stay on their guys long enough, and even if they were able to stay on their guys long enough, it didn't. Even if the pass rush did get to him, it didn't matter because the corners weren't actually covering the receivers really to begin with. There were guys open left and right. Boise State forced numerous 3rd downs, and San Jose State converted just almost as many third downs. There were multiple times where Boise State allowed someone coming over the slant or the outside, the curl. Curl was open all day. San Jose State ran the curl for a touchdown. The play before that, they ran basically the exact same play, left side curl route when it was 1st and 20, and they converted. They got to, I think it was 2nd and 8 because they got like a 12-yard reception, and then they ran the exact same play just on a slightly different side of the field, closer to the boundary. Came in, got the curl, looped it inside, and went in for the touchdown. It was the defense was not there today. Walker, I thought, was doing a pretty good job, and Avery Williams was trying his best, but the linebacker coverage was not great. The safety coverage overall was not great. There were just too many holes in this defense today to be picked apart by a very good quarterback, a quarterback who knew how to handle a offense, and that exposed this Boise State defense, who's really not faced that many quarterbacks with the competence level that Nick Starkel has. And it was just, it was infuriating that there were so many long passes available and open. I mean, 87 was open pretty much any time they wanted to get the ball to him. I don't think they stopped him from getting a reception almost at one time. I mean, even on the 2-point conversion there at the end of the game, not the end of the game, but towards the end of the game, he just reached right over the top of the defender and took the ball away. Very, very frustrating game to watch on the defense. That's kind of the key word here, is frustrating overall. I think we all can empathize with that. But that was really the big one. There was really no pressure, and even when the pressure did get through, it didn't matter because he had the ball off to an open receiver because the secondary was not stepping up. However, now let's make sure. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing, more negative to go over before we jump into some positives, and we'll end on a positive note here for the units. The defense was also very undisciplined. So part of that is what I've already talked about, the bad eye discipline, not reading the plays right and letting wide receivers get open. But even when the guy did catch the ball, they were not getting him to the ground. The defense they were missing tackles left and right. They weren't wrapping up. They were allowing San Jose State receivers and running backs in a couple of situations to break free for long plays after the catch or after the handoff because the guys weren't wrapping up. I mean, they were falling off of the receivers or the running backs because they were just trying to hit them and roll, and the defenders and the players, offensive players, I'm kind of stumbling over myself here, offensive players just kept right on rolling. So really bad discipline overall, very undisciplined defense. Very frustrating. The one play that I don't fault the defense on was that second to last touchdown by San Jose State. Second to last touchdown by San Jose State from the 30-yard line. Just a back shoulder pass. There's nothing that Walker could do on that, or Kaniho. I think Kaniho could do on that. Just great positioning. There was nothing you could do. It was a perfect pass, perfect reception. So that's the only one I don't fault. But everything other than that, the defense had a very, very rough day today. They kept Boise State in this game, however, because once the San Jose State got within 20, Boise State's defense was incredible. So I've heard all the negatives. You've heard all the inconsistencies. You've heard all the negatives that I listed. However, inside of the 20, Boise State was a completely different defense. Inside of the 20, San Jose State got inside the 20 6 times. They came around with a touchdown 1 time. Boise State forced 3 field goals, and they stopped 2 other attempts on 4th down. They were incredible. They were a pass-blocking machine as far as knocking down the deflections, knocking it out of the receiver's hands when they did have the ball, coming up on the goal line, or not quite the goal line, but 4th down and short. They're coming up and stopping the running back up the hole. They had an incredible performance. I don't know if it was the shortened field that became the big factor, which actually, I do know. That probably was what it was. The shortened field that allowed the corners to then know more what the play call was probably going to be, and there wasn't as much maneuverability for the San Jose State receivers. But inside of the 20, it was an incredible game, and that really what kept Boise State in the game as long as they were, and it is what leads to this D+ versus maybe an F or something else like that. So inside of, and now having said that as well, outside of the 20, there were some moments. There were some 3-and-outs. There were some great pressures from an occasional turnovers or forced punts, or the one forced punt that Boise State was able to return. There were some great moments. It just was not, again, consistency. This defense, again, like I talked about in my first video, they don't have the practice time, they don't have the depth, they don't have the consistency and the know-how to go out and handle an offensive team like San Jose State. So D plus, so F for the offense, D plus for the defense. Let's talk about the special teams. We're going to end on a good note here before we go into 3 keys of the game, I promised. So here we go. 3 keys. So the special teams, they get an A plus. This was a great performance. Again, the special teams have been incredible for Boise State this year, turning around what had been one of the weakest units the past few years, turning them around and creating them into one of the strongest units for Boise State. An incredible job on special teams. And let's go through this incredible performance with A plus performances throughout. So the first one we're going to talk about here, we're just going to kind of go lowest impact to highest impact, but even the lowest impact was incredible. They returned, as far as defensive go, no kick returns allowed. And on punt returns, they allowed a 10.3 average, which isn't great, but it didn't end up impacting too much as far as San Jose State goes right there. And then kick returns, long of 33. Avery Williams couldn't really get away. He tried on some of the kick returns, and I think he had one that was pretty good up past the 30. But other than that, not a great performance on the return game there, but now we'll get into the great performances. So, should have preference, we're going to talk about a little negative. There's the negative. Now we're going into the normal here. So, the good performances. So, Joel Velasquez had an incredible game kicking. Again, he has had back-to-back great games kicking. I am so proud of his turnaround, his performance. I hope he comes back next year. I think he is finally developing into that consistent kicking a bit threat that Boise State wants in the kicking game. The job that he has done turning around what was really a very rough, I want to say start, because he's now into his senior year, I believe. Anyhow, the last few years with Boise State, he has had a very rough time of it as far as consistency goes. We always knew he had the leg strength, but he just wasn't consistent. But he has finally reached that last 3 games, showing incredible performances. And this game was probably one of his season best. 6 punts for 278 yards, an average of 46.3, and he had a long of 63. An incredible job. 1 punt rolled up inside the 20. Great job at Joel Velasquez. All right, let's move on to the second one. Okay, so Dalmas, what a kicker. What an amazing kicker for Boise State. I am so happy that we have him for potentially 5 years, counting this year, if he wants to come back because of the eligibility not counting for this year. So he has another 4 years at Boise State if he wants to. He is a true freshman. He is a walk-on kicker. And this guy might be the best kicker of all time for Boise State. He's already shattered a record, which we're going to talk about right now. And he already is tied actually, you know what? We'll talk about it in a second. Sorry. But incredible kicker. Has the potential to be one of the best kickers all time for Boise State. We haven't seen him kick that often this year, but when we have, he's been consistent. He's been A+. He's been great from the short game and from deep range. Just a great job overall. So first, we'll talk about his miss. He was 2 of 3 today. He missed one from 46, but I don't put that on him. I think he should still be perfect on the year. His first miss of the year, he missed from 46. It was slightly left of the bar there, but if you watch the game itself and you go back and you watch that replay, the holder did not place the ball correctly, or he had issues getting the ball. So he got the ball, and instead of putting it down and getting ready right away for the kick, he had to double clutch it. So he caught it, and he had double clutch, and then he put it down. And that just threw Dalmas off, I think, just enough to just end up pushing the ball slightly left of the line there. It was just a double clutch on the hold. After that, though, from beyond 46, Dalmas was incredible. He hit one of 51, which is a just incredible performance right there. He had the first 50-yard field goal of his career for Boise State. And then to back things up, that was from the left hash, same spot that he missed the 46-yarder from. He went back and hit it. So glad the coaches gave him another chance versus punting. And then towards the end of the half, he had also hit one from 50. Both of his kicks from 50 looked like they would have been good for maybe 55 plus. I mean, they weren't sneaking in there. They were coming in deep and straight, hitting right up in the middle. Great performance. He is the first boy, and I did the stats. I went back, I looked through every kicker's performance since Boise State has entered FBS. He is the first Boise State kicker in the FBS era to hit 2 50-yard field goals in a game. So great job. Congratulations to Dalmas on this incredible accomplishment. I hope he chooses to stay with Boise State all 5 years, including this year. So the 4 years after this, I hope he decides to stay with Boise State. So what peace of mind to know that we have such a great leg in the kicking game for Boise State if we ever get into a situation where we need it. And God knows that we have needed it in the past. Great job. And that just brings me to my point here with the kicking game with a great leg. Now he is actually tied for the second most 50 in one game. He is tied for the second most 50-yard field goals of any FBS kicker. Joel Velasquez has 1. Tyler Rasa has 1. Tyler Jones, and we all of us remember him, he has 2. And Kyle Broxman, of course, leads the way, one of the greatest kickers of Boise State. He has 4. And in one game, Dalmas is right Tyler Jones and right behind Kyle Broxman with 2 50-yard field goals, and he has just started his career. I definitely think he'll take the record as far as overall 50-yarders go by the time he finishes with Boise State, and I think that he is going to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest kicker for Boise State all time. Incredible performance. So let's get into real quick here to wrap it up in summary, and then we'll talk about what this looks like for Boise State going future. My 3 keys to the game. These are going to be short and quick because we've already addressed most of this already. So the first key was make Nick Starkel uncomfortable, and F. That was not accomplished. We've already talked about it. Starkel ended up passing for 453 yards and 3 touchdowns. No pressure, and sacked only 2 times. Stay creative in the second half. So this is a C+ because... So the issue with Boise State, has been that they were creative in the first half, and then they've gotten predictable in the second half. Well, the creativity wasn't really there in the first half, and this was there to the same level in the second half. So there wasn't any drop off. So the stay part of stay creative wasn't. I mean, I guess it was fulfilled because there wasn't a significant change in play calling, which was part of the problem. The coaches looked at the defense that San Jose State was presenting, and besides from just abandoning the run game altogether, there wasn't a change in the passing game calls to adjust for the defense that they were seeing, and that was really the main issue. So there was no run game, like I said. It was consistent throughout. It was just consistently bad as far as the play calling goes there. And again, the play calling was, and we've talked about it, weird. It wasn't situational. It seemed like they were coming out with something they wanted to run. They were going to run it no matter what. We've already talked about it there. So stay creative in the second half. Not quite a fail because they pretty much stayed consistent, just not, they were the same level of creative as they were in the first half, so C+. I don't really know what more to say on that. They didn't fulfill my first and second key. That's the main point. Third key, time for key players to shine. That is definitely an F+, or a C. That's not really going to think. It's not a C-. It's definitely an F because Bachmeier, no. Shakir, sort of. We saw glimpses of him, but he, of course, ended up injuring himself there in the second half, and he really wasn't utilized as much as he should have been in the first half. Of course, Halani wasn't back for today, so that's really not a factor, but Van Buren really didn't show the capabilities that he has to be that player that he could otherwise be. Avery Williams did fulfill his key. You know what? We're going to upgrade this to a C-, because Avery Williams did. Avery Williams and Shakir have been those players that no matter what, they are 0-0 players all the way through. What I mean by that is they play like the scoreboard is 0-0, whether they're up by 20 or they are down by 20. They don't care. They're going out there to make a play. We saw that in the BYU game big time from both of these players. When the offense couldn't get on the board, Avery Williams was the player to get out there and get a touchdown with that. Oh, shoot. We did not talk about that. We'll talk about it now. Sorry. We didn't talk about Avery Williams' incredible return. We'll talk about that now. So Avery Williams did fulfill this key for time for key players to shine in that he had an incredible kick return. Offense couldn't get on the board. He returned a 63-yarder for a touchdown. Incredible. He now has 4 returned touchdowns on the year. I think that's kick return, punt return, and then I think he has 2 blocked punts returned for a touchdown. He leads FBS, He leads FBS this season, and I believe their announcers even said that he had tied a record, NCAA record with the 4 returns. So if he gets one more in the bowl game, he should break it. Great job by Avery Williams as far as that. But the overall key players fulfilling this key, no. This is going to be a C- for Boise State, not fulfilling this key overall. So what does this mean for Boise State now? So they've lost the game, obviously. They've lost the Mountain West Championship. They're not the Mountain West champions. This whole year is going to have a massive asterisk behind them that you can put as many excuses as you want to, and I think every team is going to have those same excuses, but everyone's going to have those excuses. But Boise State's not in the business of making excuses. They're in the business of learning from and getting better and improving and going forward. So Boise State is guaranteed a bowl game to get scheduled for a bowl game. Now, with COVID, who knows what will happen. Hopefully the game doesn't end up canceling, but they are guaranteed to get scheduled for a bowl game. So let's talk about that real quick. Who is Boise State going to play in their bowl game? I don't know. I don't have the knowledge right now of how ESPN is determining their bowl games in this weird year to really make a prediction on that. I can tell you what has been predicted out there as far as some of the names that have been thrown up. And I'm going to talk about two in particular. Potential, before this game was even played, it was being predicted that the winner would play Ball State. The winner of the Ball State, the MAC champion, so in this case, Ball State, and the loser potentially would play Tennessee. So that's been a name. That would be an intriguing matchup. Tennessee's not having a great year. I think Boise State could definitely go out and beat them, and an SEC win to end the season would be nice. The other name, which I'm more excited about, that has been thrown out recently as a potential opponent for Boise State, is Coastal Carolina. It looks like Cincinnati is going to get that New Year's Six slot, and Coastal Carolina is not going to end up ranked high enough to get one of those at-large spots. So Coastal Carolina, who's currently ranked at number 12 in the nation, would be a very difficult challenge for Boise State, and if they learn from these keys in the Citrus game, they might be able to go out there and get that win. But regardless, that would be a big opponent, bigger than pretty much any other team that Boise State has a chance of playing this year. That would be the best opponent of all of them, and honestly would make up for Boise State for sure losing this Mountain West Championship game if they could get to go out and play an undefeated team like Coastal Carolina, ranked number 12, top 15 in the nation. Would be incredible. That has been thrown out there. Obviously these are all predictions. They're all thrown out. Nothing's for sure. I think the predictions will be solidified tomorrow. All bowl games should be put in stone tomorrow. We already have a few of them filled up there, so you can go on ESPN app and see who isn't going to be a potential opponent, or because the game's filled, or who has been slotted but no opponent's been given, and potentially that's a game. I would love to see an AAC opponent for Boise State, honestly, but who knows? The main point is that Boise State's guaranteed a bowl game. So what does this mean going forward? Regardless of who Boise State plays, whether they play like a top 15 team like Coastal Carolina or a Power 5 team who's not having a great year but is still a Power 5 team, or if they go out there and they play Kent State, I don't care who they play. Regardless of who Boise State's playing, they need to end the year on a better note than they did today for two things. For the team's self-esteem. I mean, how you end a season, off-season, going in with the momentum into the off-season is very important. Now, a loss can motivate you, and the Boise State's definitely going to have a big chip on their shoulder next year coming back. If they're still in the Mountain West, we'll see how everything works out. But they'll have a big chip on their shoulder to come back and win this conference next year, assuming that, of course, is the conference that they're playing in. But they will have a big chip on their shoulder to go out and get that goal that they didn't get. That's right off the bat. But if Boise State can come out with a win, they will have some momentum, some good feelings moving in that they can then work. They'll have this already on their shoulder to go get that Mountain West win, and it'd be great to get a positive win for a team that's really played, I think, a great overall season despite not getting this win Mountain West Championship game in a COVID year, facing as much, if not more so, than most teams in the country did, with all of the different experiences and difficulties that they had to push through. I'm incredibly proud of this team, even though they didn't end up going out and getting this trophy for Boise today. So an incredible job overall, I think, despite all the issues that had to be dealt with. It'd be great to be able to go out and end the season on a positive note, regardless of who they're playing. But secondly, Boise State needs to do it for next year's team. Now, this is different than what I'm talking about with just going in with momentum. They need to finish in a place that puts them, they aren't going to get into the rankings this year, but unless they beat a top 12 team like Coastal Carolina, they get into the AP rankings, I think. But my main point is they're not going to get in the rankings this year, but if they can finish on a strong, positive note, they can set themselves up for success next year to start the season high in the top 25. And this is going to be a very, very dangerous Boise State team if they can get the reps for their players on their new position players, and if they can build out their depth chart and get their players back from injury. All those conditions can be met. This is going to be a very, very dangerous team that should, I think, be the front runner for the New Year's Six and potentially push a conversation about the playoffs with the level of the type of teams that they're playing and the level of talent on this Boise State roster. This is going to be one of the most talented, potentially going to be one of the most talented Boise State teams of all time. A great opportunity for Boise State next year. And the higher they start in that top 25, the higher opportunity they have, the higher the ceiling. The ceiling is restricted by where you start, and the higher you start, the better you're going to be able to compete. If Boise State can go out and get a big win to get some attention off of this negative loss, and to get attention on the positives and prove that they're still a great team, go out there, get that win. It's going to end the season on a very positive note, and it's going to be able to start next season on a positive note, and both of those are incredibly important. So I know this was a long video, and it would have been even longer if I hadn't truncated that 15 minutes at the beginning. So I apologize. I will try going forward to make my videos a little bit shorter. I understand that it makes it a little bit hard to view, and I'm trying to adjust as we deal with that going forward. But thank you for watching my videos. I have another 3 keys to the game video coming out for whatever bowl game Boise State gets scheduled in. I will have a NFL alumni video coming out Sunday or Monday, and then I'll also have a bowl game by game, how Boise State fans should root video for all the bowl games in lieu of a top 25 rooting video. So thank you for watching my videos. As always, I'm looking for ways to improve, so put those in the comments if you can think of anything that I can do better to make this a better viewing experience for you. Make sure to join Bronco Nation Updates page. We have over 8,000 members, a great place to root on your Broncos together. And as always, my 2 slogans to end this before I go and upload this. Probably going to take like 5 hours trying to upload this video. So before I end this, as always, #cancel the CFP committee, and go Big Blue.